That is precisely the thing to do, because when you're honest and you're vulnerable and you're showing up authentically, then there's connection. Connection doesn't just happen in the good times. Connection happens in the trenches. Connection happens in the pain. When you are sharing your own painful response to that, or you're sharing your own reaction to seeing her where she is, then you can connect by being open and vulnerable and willing to say the hard things.
Hello, everyone. We are going to revisit the basics of betrayal trauma and the advanced standpoint, right? So you've now learned the ropes. You've learned more about how this whole thing works. Now we're going to kind of come back to the basics and see what kind of repair still remains. I think a lot of people get to this year two, but we're not necessarily equipped in the beginning to repair this thing as well as we could. Maybe I'm projecting here, but I don't know. I see a lot of these guys, and first off, I think a great topic to start with would be the crisis phase and the basics. And I'd like to revisit it with kind of some of the knowledge that we have now that we've been in good recovery. Marilyn, you started with something, the kind of rudimentary process that we all go through, right? Disclosure, going through the disclosure, then the impact letter, then the emotional restitution letter. I'd like to kind of revisit all of that. Marilyn, where do you see it go wrong? And what can we do? Like, let's say we didn't honor that process with the level that we wish we honored it. And I personally can say I didn't. I was more worried about me than my wife when this first thing happened. And I'm ashamed of that. So if we were to go back, if somebody's already gone through that process, how do we do it again, Marilyn? Can we do it again? How do we handle that?
Yes, great question. So the disclosure itself, is done all kinds of ways. Sometimes it's a staggered disclosure. Sometimes it's non-therapeutic. In the best of circumstances, it's done in a therapeutic way with a therapist present with the recovering addict and also with the partner. And what happens, what I'm sure everyone's familiar with, is there's that relief post-disclosure from the person in recovery because they've come clean, they've cleared up the deception. And then at the same time, the weight of all of this information and the pain and the emotional processing of it is now on the partner. So, understandably, that creates a dynamic where they're in different places in their recovery, because while the recovering addict has that relief, the partner has this emotional challenge of figuring out how to work through all of that. So there's a timing challenge there. And then the impact letter, and what we see is a lot of people maybe go through an intensive, and so there's an impact letter shared while they're in the intensive. And in many cases, even before there's a full disclosure that has happened. So for some people, that impact letter, if the partner wants to do that work of, that hard emotional work of processing through that and putting that to paper or putting words to that, is maybe done before the full disclosure process even happens. So it's important to kind of think about how that process has gone, because that is going to impact your ability to get the healing benefit from this whole process.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up a good point. My wife and I did not do it through like an intensive kind of compacted product like offering. We did it, over time with local therapists, and I've always kind of found that a bit interesting too. I think the pros of doing it all in one is, the reality is not everybody geographically has access to what they need, and I think that's really nice that they can come here with a place that does these. All the time. So they're very skilled. They know what to see. Typically they're maintaining a lot of safety, a lot of space. So I think that's the pros. But I think the drawback is exactly what you said. It's like, we lose a bit of it. Anytime we rush something or compact something and honor some kind of sequencing just because of the logistics, we might lose some of the impact, right? And the goal of that letter and the goal of the restitution is to heal. And so when it's being done in a high stakes, high stress environment, done quickly, how well can you receive it? How well can you deliver it? And again, I think that's the messiness of this whole thing is, how do we do this all right? Like I said, I look back and I'm thinking, gosh, shoot, I think, so many things. The one thing I'd like to share, just because I think my wife and I both feel very passionate about this. My wife rushed the disclosure. She wanted to know it now. She did not want to wait the 3 or 4 months, which was what was advised. And my wife will tell you, and she has told other women, wait the 3 or 4 months. It's going to be torture. But here's what happened was I rushed it. I gave enough detail that I thought was adequate. My therapist read it, but then there was certain levels of detail that she actually wanted more of. She considered it deceptive. I didn't consider it deceptive because it was like, oh no, I mean, this is it, right? But that's the problem is ask me 4 months later. I think my definition of deceptive would have changed. And I think I would have considered what I was doing deceptive, right? I was, my mindset at the time was I'm trying to protect her. But now 4 months later, I'm realizing integrity isn't a bargaining chip. You either are in it or you're not in it. And that's what I think happens at 3 or 4 months is you start to really understand the logistics and the heaviness of all of this. Jennifer, as I bring that up, what do you, as you've seen some of this botched, what do guys do? So you screwed it up. Now what do we do? Do we go back? Do we start over? I mean, some of that's unrepairable, don't you think?
I guess I'm delusionally optimistic, as some of my clients say, and I think almost everything is repairable. So
I like it.
Otherwise, I'm not sure I would be doing this work, right?
I like it.
Things can get botched. As a matter of fact, I spent 2 hours this morning going through and doing a disclosure with a rabbi and his wife. And we just learned that, she was pregnant. And so there were a lot of moving parts. Going through and working to create the safety. And sometimes I notice when people do these disclosures, there's a lot of big emotions going on. And so it's important to be there with somebody who, is trained and understands the importance of creating the safety and security. Often what happens, whether I'm doing, whether I'm helping facilitate a disclosure or even discussion of a polygraph, is I will get a call or at the very beginning of the disclosure, I will hear from the person with the addiction, the person doing the disclosure, that, oh, there's something I forgot to give you. I recently got one of these in the morning of the polygraph. He called me as he was flying in for the polygraph. And I said, well, I believe in radical honesty. I believe in rigorous honesty. I love the work of Anna Lembke out of Stanford and Dopamine Nation and the importance of really building that radical honesty. And it happened again this morning. We had everything all printed up and ready to go. And he read through the whole thing and he goes, I meant to ask, there's one thing that I failed to put in. And I said, okay, well, I said, let's do it right now. Let's talk about it right now and creating that safety and security. So even when there has been something that's been botched up, I would say go find somebody who is comfortable and understands the disclosure process, understands building, kind of a shame resilient as much as possible environment. And also that's willing to provide the safety and the security for the betrayed partner who's very, very nervous. Their world's already been kind of, turned upside down. Hearing you talk about your wife and how she was pushing it. This same couple, I was out of town last week. And the wife, when she heard of some hard things that we were going to have to bring up in the disclosure, well, at least her husband came home pretty shook up a couple weeks ago. She said, can we do it earlier? And I said, no, we absolutely can't. I said, I'm going to be out of town first off, but we have to make sure that your husband is able to really, build this so that he is cleaning out all the corners, all the cobwebs, getting everything done. And so, having just somebody that can be that kind of voice of experience, voice of reason, professional who can help guide them and calm their nervous systems down. These betrayed partners from discovery through disclosure and very often afterwards their nervous systems are pretty
Mhm.
wrecked. They're pretty freaked out. And so we have to try to move them into a calmer, more socially engaged state. We do a lot of work with the polyvagal system,
Mhm.
Stephen Porges,
Mhm.
and Deb Dana, where we're working to help people get out of their sympathetic nervous system, where they're so nervous and agitated. And we see a lot of that coming where they're in their fight or flight, or where perhaps even before a disclosure, where they're in their freeze and they haven't been able to, stay in that place of social connection. And our goal is we're helping people, whether it's overcoming a botched disclosure, and I've done plenty of those, with helping people overcome those botched disclosures. But we're helping people find that way to move back into their ventral vagal, into
Mhm.
the social engagement part of their nervous system, so that they are able to stay more socially engaged.
Mhm. And I think this is a good opportunity to bring up the difference between a backyard disclosure and a therapeutic disclosure. Rob Wise, in the end of his book, I think it's at the end, he talks about the importance of doing this therapeutically. And I want everybody to listen to this. For the guys who have not, maybe, there are people who listen to my podcast who have not yet told their wife about what they've done. You must do this. I don't think we have the numbers, because we wouldn't be able to collect the data on this, because we usually don't see the people who do backyard disclosures. But the likelihood of getting divorced and her not giving you a chance is through the roof. I mean, you just dropped the biggest bomb you could ever drop on her. Society has said that guys who do what you do are going to do it again. You don't deserve another chance. She's stupid to stay. Like, everything is counting against you. So do not do this in your backyard. You're really putting your marriage at a massive risk that really could have been saved if you do it therapeutically. I mean, I'll tell you guys all this. My wife is not the person that you do this to. She is like everything about how she is. Like, this is just not what you do to her. So I really believe if I did a backyard disclosure, I don't think I would have gotten any sort of opportunity to heal. Again, the world does not say give this guy a shot. And the cool thing about a therapeutic disclosure, just to kind of close the door on this, is when you guys craft this document, it's crafted very carefully so that it's not fluff. There's no spinning it one way for convenience. There's no hiding specific. It's done out there. It's done right. Her therapist is there. Your therapist is there. Your couple's therapist is there. It looks like you are sick, and that's to your advantage, because you are sick. And she needs to see it that way. And when you just drop it on her in the living room one night, you don't look sick. You look like a guy who just wanted to have a bunch of extramarital sex, and it's a little bit of a harder thing to swallow. Whereas when it's delivered therapeutically, it's like, hey, listen, I have a problem. He's 3 professionals who all agree that I have a problem. They've helped me craft this document so that I can explain to you the breadth of my problem and how it came about, and that this was going on well before I met you. And it just really tees you guys up to at least give it a shot. So I just, anytime that comes up, I've probably mentioned this in a bajillion podcast episodes, but I can't reiterate it enough. Rely on professionals with this, please. It's just, if you have any desire to save your marriage, this needs to be done correctly, and it needs to have a facilitator. There's too many emotional charges on both sides. Guys, you're going to lie. You're going to lie so fast. You need to know that, and you need to protect her from your lying habits. And that's the reason we do it all this way, is it just kind of mitigates all of that to set you guys up for the best, the best chance possible. So let's migrate over to after this. So we do this whole crisis process. One of 2 things are going to happen. Either she's going to lose it, or what I actually see happen quite often is there's this like little shock phase where like things are surprisingly not that bad for a month or 2. This is how it went for us. And then things got really bad. And I'm talking bad, just the emotional wrath of, reality really set into her of like, oh my gosh, just because we did a polygraph, a disclosure, and this letter, I'm not over it at all. If anything, I'm further from over it. And so I think that reality sets in of, I hate my new reality. I hate Monday. I hate Tuesday. I hate Wednesday. I hate Thursday. I hate being at your parents' house. I hate being here. I get triggered by any woman who walks by. And, it's just such a frustrating world for them to live in. So this whole wrath is coming out. And I think we should talk about how to handle that, because it does not go away very quickly. It's not uncommon for this to hang around for 2 years with, some change, but, not as much change as I think most couples would like to see. So let's talk a little bit about how we handle that. Obviously, a lot of the people listening are somewhat experienced with this. So I'd like to kind of talk at a little bit of a higher level, right? So you've made it through, you've read the Help Her Heal books, you're kind of tooling up your empathy tool bag. But again, maybe again, I'm projecting here, but I ran out of tools in my empathy tool bag pretty darn quick, so here I am at 7 months and it's like, crap, I tried that one. I tried this one. I used this one 3 times yesterday. Now I'm like, I'm having an emotional response because I don't know how to keep doing this day after day after day after day. Can you speak to a little bit of that fatigue? Because I think the mind, at least my mind, was saying this isn't working. And in hindsight, I can tell you it was working. But again, in that moment, you start to stop believing that empathy is going to do enough or that you can do it right. What would you say to guys who are in that phase of, Jennifer, Marilyn, help me. This isn't working. You guys told me to go say these things to her and it's not making a difference. What do you say to that guy to encourage him to hang in there? And what else can he try?
Well, I would say that this piece around shared experience of she has been alone in her feelings. And when there's that, acknowledgement and validation and reassurance there, which is the AVR that we talk about, has that included like emotionally dropping in, like allowing yourself to feel, right? Connecting to your own feelings that you can there connect to hers, because she is still going to feel unseen and unheard if there hasn't been that emotional shared experience where you're sharing that from the best of your ability. You're not her, but for the best of your ability to kind of drop in and meet her emotionally where she is, and just fast is slow and slow is fast. Like she's been sitting in it. You're going to need to sit there for a little bit, right? It's going to take some time of sitting in. And I would say the other piece that I think gets missed a lot is the best trust building tool that you have is to 100% keep your commitments. So if there is any commitment, you were going to stop off at the store on your way home and you just forgot, like communication around those commitments and that acknowledgement of where you've fallen short, she can't allow that trust to rebuild. She's going to be constantly triggered over and over and over, right? Over just something insignificant, but it's going to trigger all of these other times, all of these deeper injuries and these deeper wounds. So those are a couple of like watch outs, right?
I'd like you to speak, before I have Jennifer kind of add hers, I'd like you to define sitting with it. You people, I'm going to say it like that. You people tell us that all the time. And I hated that because I'm like, what the flip do you mean sitting with it? Because here's the thing. What I thought was sitting with it. Then she looks over and she's like, aren't you going to say something? Don't you? So I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm trying to sit with it. Right. And now I'm getting like attacked for not, I'm just sitting over there terrified, and I'm being accused of not caring, which is so far from the truth. I care incredibly so, but now that I'm being attacked for not caring, now I'm extra frazzled. Marilyn, how do you define sitting with it?
Well, I'm going to do a very therapist thing right now and say, like, at that moment where you're sitting with it silently, what are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling it? Is there actual physiological responses to that you can identify and notice and realize that, okay, I am having a real meaningful experience here as I connect to you and what you're going through. And I want to share something that happens a lot on the impact letter. When she's written that impact letter and they read it, and they often, I encourage my couples and my guys in recovery to write that emotional restitution letter. And sometimes they will write it and they missed the most significant parts of what she put in there. And so, in their mind, maybe they thought the most significant part would have been, the number of partners they were with or something to that extent. And what she's thinking about is when she was in the hospital, and where were you at that moment? When she was at her most vulnerable, these really important, meaningful, or vulnerable times. And so in having that empathy and practicing, like sitting in it and meeting with her, it takes like really reflecting and examining, like, what was the emotional impact and why was that so emotionally impactful? And then doing your best to convey how you feel about being the one who caused that injury, right?
Yeah, and I think so. Here's how I've dealt with it, because here's what happens is she'll express that, and almost instantly I go into an emotion that is about me and my life and how I'm now seen by my wife. But I'm going to tell you guys, I that's not uncommon, and actually that has satisfied. It has not brought my wife peace. I want everyone to understand the difference. Just when you do this, it does not mean it's going to make it better for her. She's going to hug you, forgive you. I think guys also need to understand too, expressing empathy is, I think this is a misunderstanding that it's going to make things better. That is not the promise. It is just it's the only thing you can really do in that moment. That's the reason we tell you to do it, is you really don't have any other option besides to show some empathy, but also don't expect it to do whatever it is you're expecting it to do. And I think that was one thing I had to learn the hard way, is I was like, that must be hard for you when you blah, blah, blah. I expected her to like kiss me or something. I don't know what I expected, but that's not how it works. So what I've done, and Marilyn, I'll let you speak to this just to make sure I'm understanding it right, or you can explain it to the audience a bit better. What one of my therapists told me to do was, I explained to them, hey, when she does this and she says this, I explained to them what goes on in me and what goes on in my head. And she goes, yep, say that. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's not empathy. Empathy is supposed to be, that must be hard for you. It's supposed to be one of these 12 statements that I did on my workbook. And she goes, no. When she said that, and it's making an emotional response in you because of what she said, that is empathy. And so guys, how that works is my wife will say, hey, that I can't get it out of my head that one time I straightly, blatantly asked you to your face, and you looked at me and lied. And not only that, you came up with an elaborate excuse as to how what I'm saying could have never been true when it was true. And she's saying that to me, and I feel like the lowest of lows. I mean, not only did I lie to her, but I truly manipulated her, and I got away with it at the time, right? And so I'm reflecting back on what I did, and I feel like the scum of the earth. Like, how could I have done that to her, and how am I ever going to regain her trust? And so I sit there, and I'm quite sad. I'm defeated. I'm just as ashamed of myself as she's trying to explain. I can't believe it either. But guys, that's what you say. You say, hey, when you tell me that, I can't even believe that I was that kind of a husband. And I'm sitting here, and to be honest with you, I don't know what to say. I don't know why I thought that was okay. And the fact that I did it makes me, I feel very unworthy right now. I feel unworthy to be anyone's husband. And so frankly, I don't know how to respond, because I'm just feeling very ashamed of myself. Guys, that's empathy. Now, again, it would be way better if you could relate to her experience, but I'm just going to be real. That's hard to do. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not there yet. I don't know. I'm a wounded little beat up boy, and I don't know if I'm ever going to grow up. And so it's hard for me to have that really adult present response. And I also want to kind of empathize. I think it's even harder when it's your wife. I think that's like level 20 empathy, and I don't know if us guys are going to get to level 20, but I think we should try. So that's the one thing, is don't give up. Keep trying to see if you can get there and stop making it about you and getting it to about her. But again, don't be surprised if that's going to take you a decade or two. I mean, that's a very difficult skill to task, especially when it's the person that you love the most and you acted that far out of character. Right? I mean, what she's saying about you, like, you hope nobody finds out about that moment in time, because it's just so shameful. I mean, gosh, would my friends even want to be friends with me anymore? Right? So as I say that, Marilyn, am I saying this accurately? Is that enough What did you hear there, and how can guys do what I just said, but tell them how to do it better? Because I'm just bad at empathy. I'm going to be real with y'all. There's a reason I don't have an empathy podcast, because I'm not the go-to guy for that.
That is precisely the thing to do, because when you're honest and you're vulnerable and you're showing up authentically, then there's connection, right? And I think what we forget a lot of times is connection doesn't just happen in the good times. Connection happens in the trenches. Connection happens in the pain.
Yeah, true.
So when you are sharing your own painful response to that, or you're sharing your own reaction to seeing her where she is, then you can connect by being open and vulnerable and willing to say the hard things.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, guys, too, it's the thing that I've learned through this is how many issues I still have. I mean, the fact that she can't express her pain without me making it about me, to this day, mind you, shows you how concerned I am with being judged, with my image, right? It just shows you how fragile my sense of self is, right? And so I think that's why I've learned to love that. And again, guys, what I just said there, what if you said that to your wife? Hey, I'm having a hard time not making this about me, and it just shows me how insecure I am, and how, like, your comments just, I can't even be with your pain for even a second without making it about me. Guys, maybe that's where you're at, and that's what she wants to hear. Because here's the thing: what are you going to do? Fool her with some sort of magical empathy statement from your workbook? No, she's going to feel that you're making it about you, whether you say it or not. So to me, honesty is what she's looking for in that moment. Jennifer, as we're having this dialogue in front of you, what's coming up for you? And do you have any last bits of advice before we go on to the next item?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I first want to just validate anybody going through this process. I mean, even trying to build empathy, like you were just talking about. I mean, you guys are rock stars, honestly, that you're really even attempting this, because so many people go through and make big mistakes in their relationships and in their own lives, and they avoid them, and they just stay out of them. And maybe you were forced in through a discovery or something else, but the fact that you're even coming and showing up is a really big deal. And I just want to validate that, since Marilyn was talking about the ABR, acknowledge, validate, and respond. Sometimes I hear, from the guys I'm working with, that they're like, but I never get validated for the work that I'm doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing that you're even showing up and trying to do this work, because it's hard. It's hard to be around somebody when their nervous system has been emotionally dysregulated, and you're the one who's caused that. That just creates a lot of shame. A big part of the male, ego is built up in being a protector, and being a protector, a provider, and a lover. And when those things are kind of emotionally, through experience, those things also get wounded. Those parts of the male ego get wounded. I will say also, though, that your partners, your wives, they have really good BS meters.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, they're going to recognize when you're not authentic, when you're not honest with them. They're learning about gaslighting. They don't want to continue to be gaslit. So be authentic and honest with your emotion. I think that's huge. One of the things I talk to, guys about when we're working through their recovery early on is an acronym BLAST: bored, lonely, angry, stressed, tired. And I tell them that, when they're like, I've been working so hard, why am I not being validated? Why are they not noticing? I'm like, they also have BLAST. They also have their traumas come up, their betrayal traumas come up when they're bored, lonely, angry, stressed, and tired. And that's going to happen a lot of times. And so they need to have humility and patience as they're, allowing their wives are lagging indicators. They knew about their addictions before their wives knew about the addictions. And so they have to practice a lot of patience as their wives are processing, and as their wives are, allowing those wounds to heal. Emotional wounds, heal much more slowly than physical wounds.
Well, and that BS meter is kind of why you and I first met. So Jennifer, you actually reached out to me on I have a contact form for therapists if they want to kind of get a hold of me and talk about kind of how we do things. And this was kind of the piece that connected us was the moment we met, we kind of saw eye to eye. I personally, and there's probably a lot of guys who don't like that I say what I say on my podcast. I don't think guys are in good recovery. A lot of them. I think the majority of them are not. I think they're in good sobriety. But I also think that's why the relapse rate's so high. Is sobriety is not anything you can count on. Sobriety, I always call sobriety the armor. But man, it's so nice to just like get out of the war, so you don't need the armor at all, because the armor has vulnerable spots. Always, there's always weakness in every armor, and you need to get out of that place and stop taking fire. I'll say this again. Sorry, listeners, I've said this a million times on my podcast. The world we live in is like 4 steps back every day. And so if you're not taking 4 steps forward, you're not even treading water. You're getting sucked into the over-sexualized culture, the objectification of the female figure, the overemphasis on the value of what a sexual experience is going to bring into your life. I mean, that's just the world we live in. Every TV show, every sitcom, there's casual sex. There's, none of this is really being honored. I always tell everybody, if you think that, I always tell everybody, we don't really act like a culture that values monogamy, right? If you look around, I would tell you that we don't. Well, if you talk to, I would say 99% of couples, they do. Right? It's a very small fraction of couples who have a open relationship from a sexual standpoint. Like most couples honor monogamy from a sexual standpoint and preserving the sexual energy for the relationship. But that's not how we built this place. It's not that. So Jennifer, I'd like to, and Marilyn, the last topic I'd like to talk to you is this BS meter as it relates to the women. I talk a lot on my podcast about good recovery from the men's standpoint so that the men can get in good recovery. But I want to call out this dreaded question, which is, I don't think you're in good recovery. And I know you have heard it from the ladies, but here's the thing. And I know guys find that so frustrating. You know what I've found? I would say 49 times out of 50, the woman's right. I would say there's an exception. Sometimes her nervous system and she's acute. She's the resentment is convincing her that he's not in good recovery. But I would say the vast majority of the time, he's in good sobriety and not in good recovery. And I think she's actually right. I talk about a little story in my book around how my wife accused me, and I went to inhale to attack her. And then I stopped and I was like, Roland, what is she actually saying? And I stopped and I said, you know what? She's seen me grow businesses, scale businesses, save businesses. She's seen me try hard for something that I really, really want. And I think she's seeing that I'm not trying as hard as I've tried on other things with this. And I was like, instead of attacking her, I said, you know what? You're right. I don't enjoy my recovery groups. I don't really get anything out of the current ones that I'm attending. I find them inconvenient. I'm not connecting with the men there. I'm doing these workbooks, but I'm just doing them so that you can see me do them. I'm not really doing them. And and that kind of hit me hard when I acknowledged that. So I'd love to get your take on this. You both work with addicts and partners. How do we handle this discussion? Because I think there's a lot of emotion on both sides. There's the male defending the 15 hours that he's putting into going to this meeting, going to that meeting, has this online group, has this therapist, and then the couples therapist, he feels like, hey, no, I read the Facing the Shadows book. I'm doing all of this. How come she still feels like he's not? I'm curious. Jennifer, you go first.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. It's an interesting question, such an interesting question that literally last night in our betrayal trauma group, we were talking about this question. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, I just don't think he's in good recovery. And I said, ladies, I swear I heard this from 2, maybe 3 of my female clients today. So it is a very, very burning question. And again, I do think that when women have been betrayed, I think part of their female brain makeup is to maybe be a little suspicious, but also have great sensitivity and spidey senses, so to speak, and the ability to really recognize when their husbands are in recovery. They know you sometimes better than you know you, because if you have been working your addiction for a lot of years of your marriage, you've been in a place of compartmentalization and a place of dissociation at times. and your wife has watched you in those places. And so she knows you and she recognizes what, good recovery is for you. I do encourage, my female clients going through the betrayal that they need to let, the husband own his recovery. It's not their job to police the husband's recovery, but they can also sense when the husband is not in good recovery. Very often, I think it's interesting you tell the story about, your wife has watched you successfully build businesses and work through major obstacles. And she knows when you're connected to what you want to achieve. And so I do think women with those spidey senses or BS meters, whatever we want to call them, they are able to sense, strongly sense, intuitively sense when you are committed to the process. And they can tell when you're just showing up. They can tell when you're just checking off the boxes. And they want to see that you care about the relationship as much as they care about the relationship.
Yeah. And I'm going to empathize with the men here for a split second, because I also think that the field makes it hard for guys to get really excited about recovery. It's why I started my groups, because my guys love, they're very enthusiastic about our approach. And it's because I don't look at it as sex and porn addiction. I look at it as process addiction. Now, yes, these processes have led to a sexual acting out, but the truth is, you're probably engaging in these exact same processes in a lot of ways that aren't sexual. And that's, to me, why her BS meter is high, is she feels she doesn't necessarily even know how to articulate it. And I think that's frustrating for the guy, is the guy's like, tell me why, tell me what. And she's like, I don't know. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. But this is where I agree with them, is I think their body knows that the guy who did those things is actually still capable. He's sober, but he's still capable. And that's why that to me, this is deeper than sex and pornography. It's, if you have found value in a novel sexual experience, we need to examine that. If you have found value in being with an extremely attractive female that's going to enhance your life, why? What's that going to do to your life exactly? And I think we've been programmed at a very, very young age to we see all the celebrities, every 2 years they're upgrading their wives with the newer, younger, hotter model, and sports figures are doing this, and it's everywhere around us. And then even the women are participating, right? They're going and paying surgeons to make them look like a newer and younger model, right? So there's this big perception of some sort of value there. I think both men and women need to unsubscribe from that. There's nothing wrong with aging. Aging is normal. You will age and you will die. So why are we trying to delay something that's very natural and normal and has been happening for years? And who decided that was a bad thing? I think that's where we need to start there. That's the key to overcoming process addiction, is who made this up and why do you believe it? And do you think it's actually healthy to perpetuate this belief and put this on the following generations? To me, recovery needs to be a conversation about sustainability, about what's this doing to humanity. To me, if you're making it just about you and your wife and trying to get her to trust you again, I'm not sure you're going to escape, and I'm not sure she's ever going to feel safe. I think that's fake recovery. I think this problem's way bigger than you and way bigger than your marriage. And I think if you start honoring it like that, she'll start feeling safe, because it's that moment where she understands that you know what's going on and you're aware of it. It's that lack of awareness that creeps them out. And frankly, it creeps me out. I have guys in my program. It's really funny. The guys who leave at 8 months are the last ones that should be leaving. And it's funny, the guys who stay for 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, these guys were kicking butt. 3 months in, they were cruising. But it's funny. I always see that as the guy who I'm like, oh, you're leaving? Okay. It's none of my business. I'm not going to tell them that they're not in a place to do it on their own. I mean, that's their decision to make. But I find that really ironic that the ones who bail are the ones who, in my opinion, probably need it the most. And I think that's just kind of speaking to this. Do you really honor the size of this? And I think some guys don't want it to be any bigger than sex and porn. I think that's a very convenient story. And so I think they're like, oh, yeah. See, there we go. 8 months, haven't done it. I'm good. I'm like, well, I don't know. The statistics would say otherwise. And have you been to a group? Have you seen a guy 5 years out, 10 years out? I don't know. To me, I've chosen the other route. I'm not going to take my foot off the gas. It's not worth it. I love my wife too much to do that. But Marilyn, how about you? As we're talking about this topic, what would you say to both the men and the women with this? Because it's a point of serious contention, and it comes up at your 6 months. It comes up at year 1. It comes up at year 1.5. It comes up at year 2.5. It comes up at sometimes even at year 3. Are you in good recovery? This is not this record plays for a while. Marilyn, what would you say to both partners about how do we handle this? Because it should not be it should not be a dividing topic. It should be a collaborative topic.
Yes. So one of the things that I see as so important is that systems piece around, both are doing their individual recovery and having a good couples therapist who can help integrate that, because you can do your own individual work. Both of you will be doing your own individual work, but then how does that translate to the relationship and to new patterns in the relationship is really important. And sometimes when she says, you're not in recovery, sometimes when the partner's pushing back on that, they're seeing that lack of awareness that you were talking about. They may be seeing some impatience with, spending less time with the family maybe, or less patience in the family dynamic than maybe they may have in their recovery work or with their men's group or their sponsor.
Or the shape shifting is the one I see too. Like if we're at a conference and all of a sudden I'm like, why are you talking like that? Why, like, what's happening? And she sees you performing to get people to like you. That creeps them out too, because it's like, hey, what about being one thing with one morals instead of values at all times? What about integrity? Because I see you still kind of becoming whatever you need to become for the situation, and that doesn't make me feel safe. So that's another one I just wanted to bring up. Sorry to interrupt, but that's another one. In addition, it's like that to them, that's not safe. Like nobody else in this room is doing that. You're doing that way more than everyone here. I don't like that. Like everyone else is being themselves. You're like putting on this performance constantly. I don't like that.
Yes. So that integration piece of what the work that you're doing individually and how do you integrate that into your relationship makes so much difference in her being able to see the progress, right? Her being able to feel it and recognize that it's, be able to trust that it's really here to stay, right?
Yeah, well said. I like that. It's because again, and to me, guys, did you hear the spirit in what she said? That they're not demanding perfection. They want to see you playing the game that protects them. And to me, I really believe this, and I'm going to say it again. I already said it, but I really believe this. Until you're honoring the size of this thing, the systemic issue of this, the harm that this is doing to the young men and young women after you, really truly honoring all of it, not just her. Like what's done is done. Like she's not worried about that. Like obviously she doesn't want you to do it again, but like to her, it's like, do you realize why this happened? And are you really truly participating in the elimination of this behavior practice? Because I don't think guys understand, like women don't do what we do. They don't sit around in college at the cafeteria table talking about objectifying this guy on the other table. They don't do that. They treat him like a person. I'll speak to all women. I'm sure there's some women who do, but like, when you're walking behind someone, they're not saying, oh my gosh, like guys, I don't think you guys understand, like what we have culturally done and what the movies and everybody has convinced you is normal. Normal doesn't mean okay. Normal means a lot of people are doing it, right? The Holocaust happened for the same reason. Slavery happened. We thought it was okay to go pluck a guy out of his, pluck the mayor out of his community and change his name and call him a slave and make him clean stuff for free. Like, guys, normal's scary. And I think everyone needs to be, and that's what these women are saying is this is no longer really about the betrayal. This is about, like, I don't think we're safe. And I have a lot of reasons why. And she wants you to get on her team. And that was to me, that's where safety comes back, is like, are you fighting the fight? Because this world is not a safe place to live in. And I need to see you fighting the fight. I need to see you leaning in pretty hard, because if the day I see you not leaning in, what's going to happen, and I'll just say this, guys, the relapse rate's not low. The one study that I saw puts it at the recovery rate at 34%. That means the vast majority of men, 67 or whatever, are relapsing. And so I think we need to honor this with the level at which it needs to be honored. This is not something to play with. I was talking to somebody, a podcast episode right before you guys. She said, I don't know why we don't I don't know why we're not more scared of this. She's like, okay, so what? Nothing's going in your mouth or being injected into your arm, or you're not smoking anything. She's like, so what? Look at what this is doing to the brain. It's lighting this sucker up with arguably one of the most stimulating experiences that we can have. And you think your body's going to not want that again and again and again and again. Like, you guys should be terrified of this whole process, because again, it's to eliminate this is not a small feat, in my opinion. And we have a lot of things working against us. And so to me, if you're not taking 5 steps forward, I don't know. I think your wife has every reason to be a bit concerned with maybe a return to some old habits, right? So last thing, you guys have all sorts of neat product offerings for people who want to do intensives, couples, addicts, partners. Talk to us about how people can find you. What's the website? What kind of resources do they have? And if they do want to work with you, how's that process work?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I really think it's important that you were talking about the sociological changes that are going on in society, and it's really, really hard. And we really do believe that we have courageous people who are showing up to do the work with us. And we often get referrals from inpatient resources. We are CSAT trained. We have a number of our therapists who are certified sex addiction therapists, as well as certified partner trauma therapists also through ITAP. And they can check us out. Our website is atlri.com. We are located in Atlanta, Georgia. We have people who work both as clinicians and as coaches. We do have programs where we can do some psychoed work with people to help them really build a plan, and as well as group work to work with other people. We are building intensives. We don't currently have one being offered, but we are building those because we are very systemically oriented and feel very strongly about the need to heal the whole system. This isn't an individual healing process. It is a holistic healing process, because none of us really makes the decisions we make in life on an island. We are influenced by those around us, and then we don't stay committed to our goals without the influence and support of those around us. And so we want to be those who can provide support for people and help them to live their greatest dreams. I think it was great when you were talking about leaning in. And when I think about leaning in, it's showing who you really are authentically. And addiction gets in the way of doing that. We're just wanting to help you learn to lean into who you really are and what really want to accomplish again.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I personally attend 2 intensives a year, and I plan to my whole life. They're starting to no longer be in the sex addiction field anymore. I'm kind of going into emotional, somatic experiences and different kinds of intensives. But I mean, guys, in my opinion, this is not, I think the one reason I don't like this being called addiction is it implies that you're going to get over it. I think that's kind of the problem with that word, is that there is this like, oh, I'm going to recover, I'm going to withdraw, and then this will be out of my life and we can carry on. I have had some guys in my program who actually do what appears to be get into a really good place where this isn't a massive thing. So that can happen. I'm not going to say that it can't. I would say the vast majority, they're mentally prepared to fight the fight forever. The thoughts are not gone. The objectification temptations are still very much present. It's not they have not won the war. They're still very, very much in it. They're just more equipped to have it not mess with their life. To me, I don't mind fighting the fight. I love it. I really do. I think this is fantastic. I think there's so many issues with me that I did not know that I had. And I think recovery's forcing me to turn over every flipping stone and, fix one after another, after another, after another. And I'll tell you right now, I would not want to go back to the life that I was living. No way. That unconscious way of existing and thinking that I'm doing things right. I had no idea what I was missing out on. And, I think I share that message with everybody listening to, lean in. This is not an inconvenience. If it feels like an inconvenience, you're doing it wrong. I'll say that right now. If your recovery feels like a burden, you need to change things up. It should not feel that way. Marilyn, Jennifer, this was so wonderful. I'm glad we did this. Thanks for stopping by. I love it.